Hi, I'm Jen.
And I'm Greg.
And welcome to Flights or Growlers.
Today we're at the Epcot International Food and Wine Festival 2021.
That's right, and we recorded this in July of 2021, right after the festival opened. It seems really early for festivals like Food and Wine at this point, but you know, Epcot, if it doesn't have a festival, it's why bother opening?
This is the first of 3 that we know of, although there will be new booths and attractions opening up on October 1st, so we may do an update sometime later.
So what we decided to do was to highlight all of the flights that are available at the festival. And if you have a festival passport, at the bottom of each booth, it will say that a beer flight is available. They also, of course, have wine flights, but I'm not as interested in those.
And today we are starting with the Appleseed Orchard flights that are available near the Canada Pavilion in Epcot's World Showcase.
Not just near the Canada Pavilion, in the Canada Pavilion.
It's located next to the Le Cellier restaurant in the Canadian Pavilion. And they did this last year. They focused on specifically apple cider type products. And you can taste regular ciders in addition to alcoholic ciders and beers.
And I think they have some apple-themed food in there as well. We didn't try any of that, but definitely something to keep in mind for the future.
Yes, and they've actually postponed the Canada Far and Wide Circle Vision 360 show, which normally plays in lieu of the Appleseed Orchard.
All right, so here we are. This is normally the exit to the theater, and this is where we're going to actually enter, and you'll see those 360 screens that Greg was talking about. It's really a nice, warm, homey environment. It feels very fall, even though it was middle of July and super, super hot out. The air conditioning is blowing, and you've got those rich fall colors happening, and the smell of the apples, I thought, was pretty apparent in here as well. And people have taken those railings where you lean on to watch the show and using them as little makeshift tables for their tastings. It's kind of a really neat party atmosphere.
Yeah, sometimes the 360 vision shows give people vertigo and they lose their balance, so they have these rails in there so people can hold on to them, but they're also handy for serving drinks and beverages off of.
There you go, multitasking with those. So if you don't, for some reason, have a festival passport, they have the menus at all of the stations with all of the different booths with the friendly cast members there to talk you through it. But we wanted to start with a cider flight. Appleseed Orchard actually has 2 different flights, which is great. They have a cider flight and a beer flight. So this is the cider flight. Very nice, pretty, cidery colors. All of the flights come in these kind of cardboard containers with a little tasting card, and all of the tasting notes are from left to right or up to down on the card, so you can kind of correspond which is which if you don't happen to see which one they poured.
If you're playing at home with your festival passport.
All right, so starting the cider flight, we have Collective Arts Circle the Sun Hard Cider at 5% ABV out of Ontario, Canada. This was a really peachy brown color with a nice creamy head, a sweet apple juice on the nose, sweet apple and tart cherry flavor. It was full-bodied, effervescent. It really coated the mouth with sweet apple, but you still have that tart cherry on the finish. It was a complex cider, and I liked it a lot. What did you think, Greg?
Yeah, I think it had a nice color. It was delicious. It was refreshing. I don't know if I've had a cider from Canada before, so I thought that was interesting, and I enjoyed this one. Next up is the Original Sin Hard Cider. It's 6% ABV, and it's from New York, New York. It was very transparent, kind of like a limoncello color with a small white head. It was very shiny. Things were reflecting through the glass. It's kind of weird. It had a white wine Sauvignon Blanc on the nose, a light pear and apple flavor with slight effervescence and a mid-tongue crispiness. And there's kind of like a waffle cone finish, so a little bit of waffle cone on your tongue. Very wine-like with some alcohol heat. This was just like drinking a sweet Riesling or Sauvignon Blanc or something. If you hadn't told me that this was cider, I would have thought you poured me a glass of wine. What do you think, Jen?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. It was very light, very kind of... You're right, wine-like. I really enjoyed it. You still had some of that apple flavor. Don't get me wrong. There was apple there, but very kind of a wine profile to this. So yeah. It was surprising, and I liked it a lot. Next up, we have the Blake's Bourbon Barrel Aged Cherry Cider at 6.9% ABV, and this is out of Armada, Michigan. This had a nice peachy yellow color, bubbles with a white head, and transparent. You got that berry on the nose, but it also had some earthy undertones. It was interesting, and I thought it was a little weird on the first taste. It definitely felt more like a cherry soda on the front of the palate, very fizzy on the tongue, and a little bit of barrel on the finish. It had a full mouthfeel, tart apple on the back of the tongue, and a cream soda finish. Oak was detected, but it was still very much creamy. As you can tell, it's a little hard to describe, and I went back and forth thinking, do I like this? Do I not like this? Do I like this? Do I not like this? Greg, what did you think?
I remember taking the first sip and thinking, like, what is going on? There were so many flavors in here, and it changed throughout the sip. So it was just, I want to say it was definitely complex, but I don't know what they were going for. It had kind of flavor all over the place. I didn't not enjoy it, but at the same time, I wasn't sure what I was drinking. So
yeah.
Kind of an interesting pour here.
Yeah, I would definitely encourage you to try it. Maybe it'll be your new favorite. I don't know. I just couldn't get a handle on it.
Well, my favorite, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask you which one was your favorite.
Great. My favorite of the group was the Original Sin Hard Cider. I know I said it was wine-like, but it was really, really refreshing. And I could drink probably a couple glasses of this on a hot day. What about you, Jen?
I liked that Collective Arts Circling the Sun Hard Cider, although the Original Sin was also very good. I would taste either one of those again in a heartbeat. So not only did they convert that entire 360-degree theater into the Appleseed Orchard, as you can see, they converted the waiting area into a little sitting and dining area. So that was really great. They set up some barrel tables, lots of room to taste your wine or food or beer or what have you. So we took full advantage of that. It's a nice air-conditioned space on a hot day.
And now we're going to move on to our beer flight, and we kicked that off with the Big Storm Apple Blonde Ale. We couldn't find the ABV at the time of recording, but we did visit Big Storm Brewery in Clearwater, Florida, and in Orlando, and we'll put a link to that in the description down below when we post the video. I thought that the Apple Blonde Ale had a light caramel color, a creamy head. It was opaque. There was kind of a thin nose with a hint of apple, malt, and grass. It was full-bodied blonde, a toasted malt. It was really delicious. But there's very little apple flavor. There's some acidity on the finish, and a slight tartness too. Style-wise, I thought it was a really good blonde. The apple hits the front of mouth slightly and then kind of mellows off into a toasty malt flavor. We've had other blondes from Big Storm, and they really knocked them out of the park. I really enjoyed this. Jen, what did you think?
Yeah, I think just on an overarching level as a blonde, it's a really good blonde, apple or not. So really solid beer, and the apple just kind of enhances the entire experience. But to me, this is a blonde first and foremost that just happens to fit into this apple category.
Yep.
Next up, we had the Three Daughters Apple Pecan Brown Ale at 5.5% ABV out of St. Petersburg, Florida. It was a light maple syrup color with a white head. It had a subtle nose and a malty sweetness. The flavor was spicy, not like hot spicy, more like spices spicy, and nutty with full-bodied sweetness on the finish. There were hints of pie seasoning. I was getting touches of cinnamon, nutmeg, and the tannins of the pecan. It had a tartness at first and then a touch of bitterness on the finish. This was a really kind of complicated beer, and I, again, went back and forth on whether or not I liked it. What did you think about it?
It was definitely reminded me of an apple pie filling. I think this would be a great dessert beer to have after a meal. If you don't want to eat a whole piece of pie, maybe you can drink something that tastes like it to kind of quench your thirst for dessert. I enjoyed it. At 5.5% ABV too, there was maybe a little bit of a punch to it, but I thought it was interesting and I enjoyed it. Last up was Ivanhoe Park's Happily Ever After Green Apple Sour Ale at 4.5% ABV from Orlando, Florida. Jen visited Ivanhoe Park in one of our previous videos, and we will post a link to that in the description down below if you'd like to check it out. This had a bright lemon color with a white head. It was transparent. It had bubbles throughout. There was a sour acidity on the nose. It had a thin mouthfeel and definitely green apple on the finish. There was a lingering aftertaste and minerality, and a lightly toasted malt, kind of waffle-like flavor throughout. The green apple flavor definitely pops. It was like a Jolly Rancher, but not quite that sweet. What did you think, Jen?
I really liked this one. I'm a fan of green apple flavor, so I thought this was really great. And at 4.5%, like, this is definitely one that I could see myself drinking a full size on a really hot day, maybe sitting by the pool. It was nice and light and refreshing. Greg, which one was your favorite?
I have to go with the Big Storm Apple Blonde Ale. Again, Big Storm just knocks it out of the park when it comes to blondes, and this was no exception. What about you, Jen?
I have to be boring and say the same thing. I think that the Big Storm Blonde Ale was my favorite here. There were things to like in all three of these beers. I really liked the Ivanhoe Park as well, but if you're making me choose, I'm going with that Big Storm Apple Blonde Ale.
Yeah, it's not boring. It's just true.
It wouldn't be an Epcot festival without a Germany booth, and it wouldn't be a Germany booth without beer.
We normally stop at the Germany Pavilion as they serve different beers inside from Germany, and we enjoy trying them out, as you all know. But for the Epcot Food and Wine Festival, they gave us some special selections.
Yeah, and I was really looking forward to this, as I always do during the festivals, because German beer is some of my favorite beer. We started off with the Gaffel Kolsch, 4.8% ABV out of Cologne, Germany. This beer was a clear golden yellow. It was transparent with a creamy head. It had a soft toasted malt aroma. The taste was lightly malty and refreshing. It was medium bodied, and you really got that cracker flavor out of the malt. It was sweet at the front, and then the Kolsch hops pulled forward for a slightly bitter and toasty finish. It was crisp, light, and refreshing. Greg, What did you think?
And like any good Kolsch, it was something that you definitely want to drink on a hot day if you were out mowing the lawn or doing some yard work or something else. I think this fits into that category, and this is a really good example of a Kolsch. Next up, we had the Weiss Stefano Lager at 5.1% ABV out of Freising, Germany. It was golden in color. It had a prominent creamy head, there were bubbles throughout, and it was pretty clear. It's malty on the nose, it's got a medium mouthfeel, roasted, toasted grains, a buttery finish. It was soft, light toasted cracker mid-palate. There was very low bitterness, and this was very drinkable, and again, very refreshing. Jen, what did you think about this one?
This was great. I really enjoyed this beer. I had actually never had the lager before. We've had some of their other styles, and I really felt like this was a well-made lager. It was delicious. It had all those nice flavors that you want, a lot of good malt going on here. I really, really enjoyed this one. Next was the chauffeur hofer. Next is the Chauffeur Hofer Wild Cherry Hefeweizen at 2.5% ABV out of Frankfurt, Germany.
Barely a beer.
Barely a beer. This was soft red with white head and bubbles. It was more translucent than I expected from the description. You would think with a Hefeweizen you're getting something a little cloudier, and this definitely was not. It had a strong cherry scent on the nose and a full mouthfeel, and sweet cherry on the back of the tongue. I didn't really get any of the Hefeweizen characteristics. It was pretty much all sweet. It wasn't very tart. You didn't get any of that yeast or malt coming through. I did a little research and found out that they make this by just combining 50% Hefeweizen and 50% cherry juice, so that explains some of the tasting that we had. Greg, what did you think about it?
Yeah, again, you said that it didn't really, the Hefeweizen didn't come through. I think that cherry juice was just so strong, and you can tell by the beautiful color that it really influenced the flavor here. The cherry was just so strong, it almost didn't taste like a beer. Jen, what was your favorite beer at the Germany Pavilion at Food and Wine?
Well, I really liked the Kolsch, but I would pick that lager to have again.
Yeah, I would do that lager again in a heartbeat. Weiss Stefano makes some great beers. I love their Vitus and others, but definitely love this lager. It was my favorite.
Well, thank you for joining us on this first installment of our visit to the Epcot 2021 International Food and Wine Festival, starting basically in January and going until the end of time. No, seriously, it started in July. It feels like it started in January. Please stay tuned for more episodes. We've got a couple more tastings that we've done. Really want to let you know everything that you can try.
Yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe, as it does help us out. As I mentioned before, we've been to other breweries in the area that are featured here, and we will post links to those videos in the description down below. For Flights or Growlers, this is Greg.
And this is Jen, and we'll see you at the brewery.